Well, it's a beautiful day here at the village. A little darker than I remember, but I haven't been here in a long time. In fact, this footage was originally shot on May 7th in the year of our Lord 2022. I intended to take a little break, but hey, at least we're back at the village, so let's pop inside and see what they had for us. Starting off in assorted electronics, here's a nice wide shot to remind us what it looks like. And you know we're in assorted electronics because there are several PC flight sticks on offer. This one is $10. Seems pretty basic, but you know it has all the usual controls, just a little crusty. And behind it there's a much cheaper looking plastic one that has a unique shape to it. Maybe that's why they want $15 for it. Seems pretty flimsy to me, but what do I know? Also, I'm not sure if this one has a different style pinout compared to the others, but you know, it's possible it could be missing several pins. Or is this normal? Again, what do I know? I'd much rather go with this Logitech Wingman Warrior, which also has a unique shape and design, and a bunch of buttons and a trigger, and it appears to have all the pins, so it's much more likely to work. Maybe? I mean, after all, this is the double-fisted 360-degree precision combat machine. And even though it's a little dirty, it has this cool knob that, when spun, is oddly satisfying. Here's a professional wireless microphone. Judging by the plastic housing, I think they've taken extreme liberties with the term professional on this one. And of course, I completely ignored the Fisher speaker so I could get a closer look at this Incredibles... you know, I'm not exactly sure what this is. Some loose wires sticking out of her undercarriage, probably not ideal. Not like this rotary knob, which is very ideal. $13 might be too much though, so you could pay $10 for this dirty old Logitech Wingman. And even though it's really gross, that of course did not stop me from touching it all over and checking the pins. Yep, got them all. Whoa, check out this telephone. The ringer goes up to 40 decibels, which is, yeah, it's actually not that loud. But it's actually 40 plus decibels, so 40 more than your usual default ringer volume? Got some giant buttons on it though, so that's cool. My grandmother could have used this when she was still kicking. She was awesome. Way more awesome than this. They want $35 for what appears to be the box for a pair of wireless headphones. It's hard to tell because the box is completely empty and there's absolutely no photos or logos on the box. There's hardly anything on it at all, besides the $35 price tag. Like, look at this. Nothing on the top or bottom. In fact, there's only a little bit of writing on one of the sides. None of it mentions any kind of make or model, so whatever they were is a complete mystery. I did notice this carrying bag with a Headrush logo on it. Those are headphones, so maybe that's what was in here? I have my doubts. Over in the area with the plastic bags on hooks, they had a wireless Atari controller that was missing the battery cover. Good luck replacing that. $8. On the floor I noticed an older model Kindle reader. It was of course already on the floor. I would never drop anything off of one of these hooks. But anyways, yeah, this has a completely passive screen, so instead of a touchscreen, it has tangible buttons, which could be an attractive feature for all of you enjoyers of tangibility. Although at $25, I don't know, seems a bit steep to me. Right beside it I noticed a Radio Shack audio-video receiver, which is pretty useless without a transmitter, but hey, I'm sure that's around here somewhere. At first I thought maybe this was it, because it's actually a wireless audio transmitter, but this one is made by Acoustic Research, which is probably better than something from Radio Shack, but again, no receiver for this one. Maybe they can be used together? Would have cost me over $20 to find out, so that is yet another village mystery. Just like the case of the missing headphones, which I think I might have actually found up here. Oh geez, I dropped something off the hook. I swear, that never happens to me. I'll be more careful to make sure that never happens again. So yeah, I don't know, these look like they could fit in that box, and they're also completely unbranded, so maybe this is them? You'd probably be better off going with the pair that I dropped on the floor. So let's move on, because I just noticed this awesome Sony Discman, and it's only $7. I would have loved to have this back in the day. A friend of mine had a Discman that he obtained through collecting Pepsi points. Remember that? Those were the days, man, when drinking copious amounts of Pepsi gave you more than just type 2 diabetes. And yes, I did just knock another item off of a hook, but this one doesn't count because it landed on another hook. After crossing the ocean of assorted cables, I found this bag of string lights, which, you know, for $5, that's not a bad deal if you're looking for string lights, which I am not. However, I am always on the lookout for a bag of lobster lights, and they're only $4. Oh man, I mean, do I really need them? No. Do I have the room for any more junk? Also no. But do I desperately want them? Absolutely. But can I justify the purchase? As much as I want to say yes, the answer sadly is no. This Static Buster caught my eye. I had no idea what it was, so I looked into it, and according to the internet, a static potential equalizer, also known as a static eliminator, is a device used to neutralize static electricity. These devices were commonly used in the 1960s and 1980s to remove dust from records, film negatives, lenses, and other surfaces by ionizing the air around them, and I think that's just fascinating. Close by there was an old school Kodak standard flash holder. It's hilarious to think that in order to create a bright enough flash to take a picture in low lighting, you used to need something this big, when now they're built into basically every smartphone. A bit of Star Wars trivia for you. The hilt of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber in A New Hope was made out of the handle from a similar product. Specifically, it was the Graflex camera flash gun, but same difference. Here's a Parrot Blue Box control unit, something that you would install into a vehicle to give it Bluetooth for hands-free cellular communications. There's a lot more to the full kit than just this control unit, but for $5, this would be a very exciting find for someone very specific. And right beside it, I've seen these several times at the Village. I have no idea what they are. They kind of look like dog bones, but they're blue and designed to look kind of robotic maybe. So I guess maybe they're for like a robot dog to chew on? That doesn't explain the big white X's on either end, so yeah. Yet another Village mystery. I noticed something interesting that was removed from its plastic bag by someone else, which, yeah, I know I joked around earlier about never knocking things off the hooks, but for real, I never rip open these plastic bags at the Village. I mean, you've seen me struggle to look through enough plastic bags to know that that's true, but I certainly don't mind it when other people pull things out of the plastic bags because they're really annoying. Anyway, they wanted $7 for this Yashica Samurai X3.0 camera. I had to look this one up, and I'm glad I did because I just assumed that it was a cheap video camera, but it isn't. This is a half-frame film camera, so you load regular 35 film into it, and it shoots half frames, so you get twice as many photos out of a roll of film. Maybe that's why they called it Samurai, because, it cuts the frame in half? Either way, the handle was broken, so I left it behind, which is kind of a shame, because after checking out some example photos that people posted online, this camera's actually really cool. This is weird. In the section that's usually filled with vacuum cleaners and Swiffer sweepers, they've got some skis. When I was a kid, my dad went out and bought cross-country skis for the whole family. We went out exactly once and called it quits after about, 10 or 15 minutes because I pulled a muscle in my back. I was 7 at the time, so that might be some kind of record. Anyways, right beside the skis, I found some snowshoes. A big brown metal one. Seems to be missing the other shoe though, and it seems really heavy. Snowshoeing always looks tedious to me. It looks like, when people walk out of the water onto the beach with flippers on. Here's a mini snowboard. Remember, this footage was shot in May, so people were getting rid of all their winter-related sports items. Here's an old Panasonic camcorder. Not a great find in my opinion, but I think we can all agree that this still sealed copy of Jerry Springer's Greatest Hits on VHS is a spectacular find. Wasn't he the mayor of Cincinnati or something? Crazy to think that when this footage was shot, he was still alive. Also, and don't ask me why, but I didn't actually buy this. So between this and the lobster lights, well, mistakes were made and regrets run rampant. Here's a big old bag of balls. Golf balls even, and they're only $5. I'm no golfer, don't have the attention span for it, but even I know that this is a really good deal. But if you're looking for something more Canadian, right above it, there's a bag filled with hockey pucks. This one's squishy. Here's a super stacked video game collection, mostly PS3 games, and so many good ones. Too many to list. And if they were still going by the old pricing method of $3 or $4, I would have taken, a dozen or so of these home with me, but sadly, that's no longer the case. Want an example? Here's God of War Collection for the PS3, the Greatest Hits version. $15. Is this actually a good price? Yes, I guess, but compared to the old prices, this is crazy. Here's another copy of the exact same game for $13, so, this one's probably scratched. Here's another Greatest Hits title, GTA 4, which is one of the best games for the entire console generation, for a very reasonable $4. Now that is what I'm talking about. That's what I like to see. How about this? Borderlands 3, another great game. Again, $4. Fantastic. I love it. And here's LEGO Star Wars, the complete saga. This one's $10, but that's probably a pretty good price. Not for me though. What about Batman Arkham City? Look at all of these accolades. Everybody loved this game. How much? $4. How about NBA Live 2010? Also $4. That's actually crazy. Same price as GTA, Borderlands, and Batman. It's insanity. No rhyme or reason. Okay, time to wrap things up, but before we do, let's check out the glass display case. First thing that jumps out to me was Wii Fish for the Nintendo Wii for $25, and NES Remix Pack for the Wii U, also $25. If the disc isn't scratched, that's a pretty good deal. Doesn't come with a fishing rod attachment for your Wiimote though. Half-Life Game of the Year edition for $35. I'd rather get it on Steam for 90% off. In fact, I did. I think I paid about $2. $30 for Super Mario World. I didn't have a way to play the game back when I shot this footage. I'd probably buy it at that price if it came up again. Classic game, and you can't get that one on Steam. And there you have it. The episode that was 3 years in the making. Hopefully it won't take me that long to make it back for another visit to the Village of Values.